Narcissists become euphoric following the discard. Did you know that? Why am I asking? I'm pretty certain you saw it. However, it's possible that you might have thought that it was simply them trying to show off to devalue you further, and that would be correct. But they are euphoric too. The underlying reasons behind this allude to one of the most disturbing realizations you can possibly have when it comes to these people, I promise you. Now, narcissists are parasitic, aren't they? They live off another person's sense of self. They drain them of their sense of self to maintain their own. They also drain them of everything else, of course. The thing with parasites is they have kind of like a life cycle, don't they? It goes round and round and round. Actually, it's the same with narcissists. The three stages of the relationship with the narcissist, the idealization phase, the devaluation phase, and the discard phase, each of them together all add up to a whole that's underneath and underlying everything. There's a purpose to it. The whole purpose, although futile, is to try to individuate. Individuation is the process by which a child gains their individuality. The process by which starts in the paranoid schizoid position in Melanie Klein's theory of object relations, yes. A sort of build up of empathy. If you read Donald Winnicott's work, you'll understand the mirroring back and forth kind of fills up the tank, as it were, to the point where the good objects and bad objects integrate, and the child realizes they are all part of the same person, mummy, and realizes they are separate from their mum. This underlying foundational element to the psyche allows a person to really truly see themselves and others as different. Not just different, as distinct, separate entities. My belief is there's a genetic component in this that prevents the child from developing to this stage. I also believe that it's genetically inherent to all human beings to try to individuate. There's a drive towards it. Now, narcissists are not independent beings. They are not autonomous. They are utterly dependent on other people to regulate themselves. The paranoid schizoid position they are stuck in, well, it's usually between 6 months to a year old. At this stage, of course, baby requires mirroring from their mother to kind of know they exist. Their needs have to be seen and met, and there's a kind of entitlement, and there are a number of different ego defenses that are still very much present in a pathological narcissist. One of those ego defense mechanisms is idealization. The idea of idealization being an ego defense mechanism can be a bit strange for some people to grasp. This is because when a baby is idealizing the good objects in their psyche, they're turning away from the bad, they're denying the bad. It is said at this stage in the infant, when they encounter their bad objects, it raises such extreme anxiety that the baby believes that the bad objects will annihilate them. That's how a narcissist feels when they encounter their persecutory objects, like they're going to be annihilated. This means they carry fantasies about a saviour that's going to come and save them from these persecutory objects, keep them safe. And when they meet this person, they idealize them. They see them in the most amazing light possible so they can deny persecutory objects in the back of their psyche. Right there is an attempt to disown or separate from the bad objects. And this is going to come up later. The interactions with them at this point to them are basically where they're getting dopamine hits of validation and attention from us. And we're idealizing them as well because they're mirroring us and they're sort of catering their false self to make us believe that they're our perfect partner. However, they develop a dopamine tolerance to this new source of dopamine. And over time, this new source of dopamine, it's less potent. That would be us, by the way. And therefore, our ability to keep them safe from their persecutory objects, that weakens. As this happens, they start to feel this terror emerging again. And as that happens, they do what they always do. They project. They see these feelings that they're experiencing as coming from us. And so rather than be annihilated themselves by their internal persecutory objects, they try to destroy us. This attempt at destruction, again, can you see, it's an attempt to separate from these bad objects. As they are trying to annihilate us, they are fully idealizing themselves further and further and further. Idealizing their false self, again, is a separation. It's denying the bad objects inside them. Individuation, which they are seeking, and leaving the paranoid schizoid position, is a psychological separation from our mothers. But it's not a separation from all the bad. No. Full individuation, the real thing, requires integration of good and bad. An infant has to grow emotionally enough to be able to handle that in their system. And these people, though adults, they can't do it. All they can do is put some kind of delusionary distance between them and the bad, the persecutory objects. But they don't know any of this. The character traits that they covet and want from themselves, from us, to imbue into the false self, well, now they try to devalue them in us, to annihilate them. Along with aspects in themselves that they project onto us and believe are us. They try to destroy those too. When they have destroyed us to a point where we're of no use to them, well, that's the time for the discards. That's what they do. So why do they feel elated? For a short time, they feel they've actually done it. They feel they've become their own person. They feel they've individuated. They can't help express this elation, and very publicly too, which actually is a really big mistake. That's because they claim the relationship was abusive and that you were the abuser. But wouldn't you be traumatized, not elated? So, in like many other ways, they trip themselves up. Can you see how twisted this is? The entire relationship is like a parasitic cycle to attempt to individuate, to become their own person, to use another person as a prop in order to actually meet with that aim. It's delusional, it's futile, it can never happen, but it never seems to stop them trying over and over and over.